I'm Rick Howard, president of Kingdom Magic Vacations. In my job, I get to travel a lot. I explore the world on land and sea, eating in unique restaurants and discovering interesting locations. I'm always looking for new places to visit, and I want you to travel with me. Welcome to Travel with Rick. Hey guys, we're here in beautiful, sunny, hot Key West, Florida. We're about to take a tour around the island on the little Conch train. This is SpongeBob. What are we going to see, Bob?
Hi guys, welcome on board the world famous Conch tour train. I'm Engineer Bob. We're going to be going all around Old Town. That's our historic district here on the island. We'll be heading right up Duval Street. We're going to see so much history you won't be able to leave it. More than 400 years of history here on the island. So welcome aboard my train, number 98. I'm Engineer Bob. You can call me SpongeBob.
All right guys, all aboard. We're going around Key West. Come on.
I want to welcome you all aboard the world famous Conch tour train and to the beautiful island city of Key West. Welcome to paradise, my friends. I call the island paradise for one great reason. You are in the only snow-free and frost-free city in the continental United States. Amen, brother. 41 degrees Fahrenheit is the coldest recorded temperature here ever. We've never had snow, never had frost, and it is one perfect reason to call this island paradise. The Conch tour train that you are on is owned by Historic Tours of America. They call themselves the nation's storytellers and operate the Old Town Trolley Tours here in Key West. You'll be seeing green and orange buses driving around. Currently you are in the southernmost city in the continental United States, which means from here you cannot get further south by land in the good old USA. And you're in the oldest city in southern Florida, but the oldest city in the whole state of Florida itself is
St. Augustine.
Gentlemen, you're exactly right. St. Augustine, 470 miles to the north. In other words, one long car ride away. From here, you are closer to Cuba than we are the mainland of the United States. We sit on the northern edge of the Caribbean Basin between the Atlantic Ocean and Gulf of Mexico. The island you're on is small, just 1.5 miles wide by about 4 miles long, and at one time we're half that big. Over the last 100 to 150 years, we have basically doubled in size, and on the tour, I get to tell you how we did that. Wunderbar! Arriba! We got the yellow board. Can you tell the Cuban coffee has kicked in? Let's roll. Well, good morning, everybody. You're on train number 98 with Engineer Bob. What do you got to do? Look down this road to your right. You're about to find a white building with the blue trim. The Key West Aquarium is the very first tourist attraction ever built here on the island back in 1934. As we make this left turn onto Whitehead Street, look off to your right. Red brick building behind the dancing couple. Beautiful archways. You are looking at the Custom House. Built in 1891, it first opened up as our post office, customs house, and a federal courthouse where shipwreck salvage cases were heard. But today, you're looking at a cultural center and a museum. Across the road on your right, you'll find a big gray stone building, Mel Fisher's Treasure Exhibit. In 1622, almost 400 years ago, 2 Spanish treasure galleons, the Atocha and the Santa Margarita, sank 30 miles to our west in a hurricane. But in 1985, Mel and crew discovered the mother lode of the Atocha. Turned out to be more than $400 million of gold, silver bars, gems, jewelry, and cannon. And much of it is on display inside Mel Fisher's today. To your right is a white wall and a green fence, but behind it, the old former Navy base. Now on your right, that old Navy cistern used to hold more than 1 million gallons of rainwater for the 15,000 sailors stationed here from World War II to the end of the Vietnam War. Big white columns on your right, between them the green presidential gates. These green gates only open for visiting U.S. presidents. 1 block behind them to your right is Harry Truman's little White House Museum. Harry Truman, President of the United States, spent 11 working holidays here. The holiday is known for poker, piano playing, a casual laid-back attitude, and the wearing of loud and bad-looking Hawaiian shirts, as they wore them here. To your left, above the little white wall, from the left side of the walkway, all the way up to the right side of the driveway, our beautiful banyan tree. Roots go down from above, making it a member of the ficus family. Roots go down from above, touching the ground or the tree itself to form more of the trunk. Another member of the ficus family, roots go down from above, is on the corner to your right. That is a Spanish laurel. Look how it expands out its base. It becomes harder to knock down or blow over from the storm surge or high winds of hurricanes. Behind it is a red brick building with the white archways. That is today's Key West Post Office. Built in 1985. It would be designed by local architect Sonny McCoy. Well, Sonny was our crazy mayor here in the 1970s, and he even designed that post office to look like the West Martello Tower, a Civil War era fort we'll see a little later in the tour.
Sorry. You're fine, you're fine.
Across the street on your right is a one-of-a-kind road sign in all of the United States. Begin one, and it says 0. Usually it says mile 0, but about 2 weeks ago it was stolen, and they only replaced it with just the 0. What the road sign really tells you, though, is you're at the beginning of one of the longest and oldest highways in all of the United States. That is because Highway 1 starts right here, but ends in Fort Kent, Maine. 2,209 miles to the north of us on the Canadian border. Again, Highway 1, one of the longest and oldest highways in the United States. And you're at the very beginning of it, mile 0. There it is. And here we are, the very heart of Old Town. We are in the middle of our historic preservation district, one of the largest and oldest preservation districts in the United States. We have more than 3,000 structures here, and nearly 10%, almost 300, are on the National Register of Historic Places. You'll know if a building is on the register when you see a little brass plaque. Check out to the left of the wooden doors of this aquamarine building. What do you find? Little brass plaque. The Cafe Marquesa Inn is on the National Register of Historic Places. We had a big problem here in the 1800s. Long, hot, humid summers that can last over 6 months long. And no air conditioning in sight. It's not invented yet. How do you keep a house cool? You build in cooling features. On the corner to your left, a Conch or a Bahama-style house. You'll find high roofs, wrap-around porch, more and higher windows that allow for more breeze to go through it or wrap around it if you sat out on the porch in the evening when it was just a little bit cooler. Cooling features built in. On your right, a big pink building, the Monroe County Library, part of the oldest public library system in southern Florida. Ladies, get a book out to read, take it to the Palm Garden. Quiet, peaceful, featuring more than 25 different varieties of poems from around the Caribbean and southern Florida. Now the neighborhood we have entered is called the Meadows. Quiet, peaceful, where you see lots of different architecture. It was brought to us by the travels of our ship's captains over 100 years ago. So notice all these homes tend to look a little different. They have one feature in common. That is the roofs. When you look up top, you can see how they're all made out of metal. And the original metal used here was tin. And there were two big reasons for tin roofs. One, collection of clean rainwater. And if you're scratching your head, why collect rain? We didn't have running water on the island until 1942. Think about that. That's only 72 short years ago that our drinking water is collected rain. It hit the tin roofs and it would easily flow down into cement holding tanks next to or below the homes. Now I'm happy to say after 6 years of living here, I finally bought my own house, and guess what it has below it?
Water.
No, well it has water, but it has a cement cistern underneath. They still have them to these days, yeah. Now the second reason for the tin roofs, fire prevention. Before the tin roofs we had wood shingles and wood burns, and fire prevention is a big reason here for tin roofs because the worst fire in 1886 starts at 2 in the morning, burned for more than half a day, and most of Old Town goes up in flames. 5 to 6 buildings survived, and they had the tin roofs. The problem with tin, it will rust. Many of the roofs today are made out of aluminum or galvanized steel. Since they don't rust, they tend to last a whole lot longer. Look to your left, mangrove trees. Behind them, New Town, the newer part of the island. What am I talking about? Over 100 years ago, the bigger Navy ships could not make it through our shallow waters to our port. The Navy begins widening and deepening the ship's channels, collecting tons of sand, coral, and seashells. A lot of it is dumped into the shallow water once on your left. And in the sun's rays, it would become hard as cement. The U.S. Navy would double the size of the island. Once, originally, 1.5 miles wide, 2 miles long. Today, 1.5 miles wide by nearly 4 miles long, double through the dredging and landfilling of the U.S. Navy. When you look up front, hold up to you a conch shell. C-O-N-C-H, not conch. Conch, like a conch on the head. My friends, if you say conch, you're instantly recognized as a tourist. So say conch. Inside, you'd find a giant sea snail, great for making conch steaks, conch fritters, conch salads, conch soups, many other tasty conch dishes. What you may or may not know, ladies, is you're in the Conch Republic. Yes, you're still in Key West, still in the United States, in the state of Florida, but we think we are free and independent. Now we're not, but we think that way. The Conch Republic forms April 23rd, 1982. The height of the Cuban boat lift. Castro opened up his borders and the Cubans fled to the Keys. They want to be on the mainland. The Border Patrol stopped them on the causeway. Between Key Largo and the mainland, they blockade, blocking traffic, searching for illegal drugs and illegal Cuban immigrants. But the traffic backed up for miles and people quit coming here on vacation. Businesses on this island begin to hurt. We asked our own federal government, please take down that blockade. They refused and they left it up. We realized we're being treated like a foreign country. We might as well act like one. We seceded from the Union. We declared war on the United States, marched on the Navy base here, attacking them with our weapon of choice, our stale Cuban bread. Hard as a rock, but no match for Navy guns, we would quickly surrender. We would apply for more than $1 billion worth of foreign aid. We have not seen a penny of it yet. We had generated so much publicity from our fake attack, the government took that blockade down. We declared ourselves the victors. That's why we have called ourselves the Conch Republic ever since. And in conclusion, our motto to this day, we seceded where others failed. We simply think we're free and independent. We're not. But long live the Conch Republic, a different state of mind. On your left, the African cemetery at Higgs Beach. Slave ships captured off of Cuba by the U.S. Navy during the Civil War would be brought here. We were a Union-held port. Now, some slaves did not survive the transatlantic crossing, buried next to the ocean at Higgs Beach. And now on your left, the West Martello Tower, one of the 3 Civil War era forts on the island. Notice its archways and metalwork inside, and that is where Sonny McCoy is said to have gotten his idea for today's post office, the West Martello Tower. Behind it off to your left, you have one of the most beautiful views of the Atlantic Lake you're ever going to see. We know it's the Atlantic Ocean, but it looks like a lake. You would expect to see some breaking waves, but you don't. There's a coral reef over 5 miles offshore. It stops them. Without breaking waves, you cannot make sand. Why do we have white sandy beaches here? Our sand is imported. They will ship it in from a sand mine in the middle of the state or from the shorelines of northern Florida. So I suppose if you get out onto our beaches, go home and see your family and friends, you can tell them you are here in Key West on Daytona Beach. And you can be right, yes. It could be Daytona Sand, Daytona's beach. Don't worry, ladies, the jokes from here only get worse, I guarantee it. Henry Morrison Flagler built the Overseas Railroad. In 1905, he told his engineers, "Go to Key West." With those words, the railroad is begun. People think he's crazy. Newspapers called it Flagler's folly. They did not believe he could cross the open miles of ocean from the mainland to this key. He spent $50 million of his own money. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but in today's terms, that would be the same as about $1.5 billion of his own personal fortune. January 22nd, 1912, over 102 years ago, Flagler steams into this town on the very first train. He changed our lives forever. It was the first time we had ever been connected to the mainland before. Flagler had crossed over 37 miles of open ocean using 29 keys, 41 bridges. Wherever Flagler had a major stop, he built a luxury hotel. Look to your left. His gift to us, Casa Marina, means home by the sea. The walls are made out of imported German concrete. The same concrete he would use in his bridge piers to get down here. Back then, the German concrete could be mixed with salt water, which is found all around the Keys. Construction on your left started 1918. The building opened New Year's Day 1920. It opens. The room rates inside are said to be exorbitant, very, very expensive. How expensive, you ask? Room rates when it opened are $8 to $12 a night. 8 to 12. Woo! I know that's steep. Don't worry. That included all your meals too. Steak like filet mignon or lobster for dinner if you want it. So let me get this straight. All your meals, surf and turf for dinner, and a room, $12. Can you say? Times have changed.
Yes.
Woo. According to that story, they have changed quite a lot.
Wow.
Yes, they have. So 2 questions for everybody on the train. Who were the original settlers here, and how did we get our name Key West after all? Well, the first settlers are not Spanish or British explorers. They're Indian tribes traveling down from what we call today the Florida mainland. And they used the Keys, hopscotching over them to get down to Cuba. Why Cuba? Because in Cuba, the Indian tribes can trade goods. But we are the jump-off point to get to Cuba. Those same tribes can meet right here, and if they did, they fight, they battle. They could not bury their dead in the hard coral rock below. The Spanish explorers in the 1500s would discover we are covered with bones. They named us Cayo Hueso, Bone Island, Bone Key in Spanish. The English, 200 years later, the 1700s, they have the Spanish maps in hand. And they saw we're already called Cayo Hueso. They corrupted or Anglicized it into Key West, thinking that's what it means. It doesn't, but that's how we get our name today. So Key West comes from Cayo Hueso, but it does not mean Key West at all. It really does mean Bone Key. So when you think about it, we are misnamed. Now that is true, we are misnamed. The westernmost keys are the dry Tortugas, 68 miles to the west. Dry, there's no fresh water out there. Tortugas, well, that is Spanish for turtles. There's lots of sea turtles out there one time. Look to your left, the orange brick house, the red or burgundy roofs. That is our southernmost house, built for a judge finding heirs, 1896. You are looking at one beautiful example of brick Victorian architecture. That home on your left and the Hemingway house you will see shortly are the only 2 homes in Old Town with a fully excavated basement down below. Why do we only have 2 full basements here in Old Town? We're on hard coral rock, which is hard to dig into. We have a high water table. Even if you can dig into this stuff, you hit water real quick. Yeah, not good for basements. And you, my friends, are the southernmost tourists on the southernmost contour train. We have reached the southernmost point, and on your left, that southernmost buoy. In the middle, in black, with the gold lettering, it says 90 miles to Cuba, which is wrong. It's 98 miles to Cuba. That is off to your left. 98 miles to the south. To your right, 120 miles to the north. Florida mainland, You are closer to Havana than to Miami. Miami being 157 miles away. Now just 125 miles off to your right to the north, that's of course where you will find today our nearest Walmart here to Key West. Yes, our nearest Walmart. 3.5-hour ride away. You're closer to Havana than the nearest Walmart, that's true too. Now you're 85 miles further south than Brownsville, Texas. 375 miles further south than Cairo, Egypt. Now if you want to know why it's so warm here in the middle of the winter, our average winter day, January, February, March, 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Because you're further south than some Egyptian pyramids. Pretty far south. Really, really warm. We live for the winters here in the Keys. To your left, Jackson Square. This whole block we go by is named after Andrew Jackson, one of the first military governors of the state of Florida. He went on to become a president of the United States. Look to your left, the Monroe County Courthouse. Standing out in front of it, the K-Pop tree. Love that green root system. The seeds float. They are buoyant. Our early sailors and Navy men here stuffed their jackets with those seeds. They were the early life jackets on the island called K-Pop vests. We did not have synthetic materials. We would use what worked naturally. The seeds on the K-Pop tree fit the bill. And what do you see when you look on the corner to your right? The end one, mile zero sign, telling me you've come a long way in a short amount of time. You're now at the end of Highway 1. Facing backwards from us, the begin one, zero sign. There you go. End one, mile zero on your right. Hemingway loves Paris, France. He lives there for weeks and months at a time. He occasionally goes back to his home in Cuba. In 1928, he would leave Paris to go to Cuba, but first stops here to pick up a Ford Roadster from the Ford dealership on the island. And they did not have a Roadster in stock, and it would take them 7 weeks to get one here and be made ready. The dealership, not wanting to lose Hemingway's business, put him up in the beige building on your left. Brown trim, brown balconies. Back then, Casa Antigua, but today, the Pelican Poop Shop. In the 7 weeks that Hemingway stayed there at Casa Antigua, that's where he wrote his first rough draft of a farewell to arms. Casa Antigua. Now we are going to pull out onto Duval Street, D-U-V-A-L, the road that is named after William Pope Duval. Mr. Duval was the very first elected or civilian governor of the state of Florida. Guys, I am going. I got the green light. You don't. Not good. Learn the rules of the road. Now here on your right, the red and yellow brick building, that was a bank until 2 years ago. Built for the Cuban cigar factory owners. They had made millions selling cigars around the world. They did not trust American banks with that money. This one built for them. 1891, the old Cuban Cigar Factory Owners Bank. Now here on Duval Street on your right, Ripley's Believe It or Not. Robert Ripley of Believe It or Not fame said of Duval Street that you are on the longest main street in all of the United States. It's an out-and-out lie. This road is only 14 blocks long and cannot possibly be our longest main street. So how did Ripley get away with the lie? The road does run from the Atlantic Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. I can see his point. Longest main street, believe it or not. If I had to make a stop on Duval, it's on your left, Sloppy Joe's Bar. White, red brick trim, owned by Sloppy Joe Russell. He was Hemingway's favorite fishing buddy. A long hard day of fishing followed by a long hard night of drinking. Hemingway drank there. Hemingway was writing while he was at Sloppy Joe's Bar. He died tragically in 1961. His widow came to Key West. In the back room of the bar is where she would discover boxes upon boxes of Hemingway's papers. Some of them uncashed royalty checks from his books and a rough draft of Islands in the Stream. That turned out to be one of Hemingway's later novels, Islands in the Stream. When you look to your left, you find the gray house, darkened shutters, and the white trim. That is the Fogarty House, built for Dr. John Fogarty, 1875. A very prominent citizen here, our mayor in the early 1900s. When Mr. Flagler steams into this town on the first train in 1912, Fogarty, to commemorate the occasion, throws a 3-day lawn party at his house. Over those 3 days, more than 10,000 people attend. Can you imagine having a party at your house and 10,000 of your friends show up? That's what happened to him over 3 days at the Fogarty house. The oldest house ever built in Key West dates to 1829. That's still standing. The home of Wrecker John Watlington. On your right, the American and Bahamian flags fly out front. 3 different sized dormers on the roof. One of the cool or cooling features for our oldest house. Now on your right, the kitchen is in the backyard, separate and detached. It kept the heat and flame away from that original wood structure. Watlington had 7 daughters. They went to the local school. Our oldest schoolhouse on your right. The yellow house, black shutters, white trim. We're going to try to make a right turn onto the narrowest street on the tour, Patronia Street, to re-enter Bahama Village. We're going to try to go through this Bahama Village arch. Give me a second to look down here. If there's the delivery vehicle, we're in good shape. It's so narrow I can't make it through. Re-entering Bahama Village, might as well play a little Bahamian music. The Bahamians settled here in the mid-1800s. They are involved in all of the major industries on the island: fishing, sponging, wrecking, the creation of sea salt. We once had salt flats. Hurricanes washed them away. 1906, 1909, 1910, 3 hurricanes in 5 years washed the salt flats away. We no longer make sea salt here on the island. On the corner, Bahama Village Market, 1 block up. Temple red lights. On the right side of those lights up there, the Blue Heaven Restaurant. It is an excellent restaurant on the island. Back in the 1930s, the Blue Goose Arena. There was a boxing rink inside. There you will find none other than a young Ernest Hemingway refereeing boxing matches. He refereed a whole entire match to make sure those 2 boxers beat the heck out of each other. He could then take on the winner, boxing them for 1 whole round. He then took the winner down to his favorite bar, Sloppy Joe's, for what else? Round after round of drinks. Hemingway, quite the adventurer. Not only could he box, he would go deep sea fishing, he would go bullfighting in Spain, and he went on safari a few times in Africa too. Quite the adventurer, Mr. Hemingway. His house was only a block and a half away from the Blue Goose Arena. As we reach this next corner, on your left you'll find the red brick wall that surrounds his home. It was built by Hemingway with the help of his fishing buddies for privacy. He was a world-famous author, a Pulitzer Prize winner in literature. Before the wall, people could walk up to his home any time of the day or night to shoot photographs of him and the family. Inside the compound today, you can find up to 44 of the polydactyl, descendants of the 6-toed cats they would bring with them from Cuba. The original cat they brought with them from Cuba was called Snowball. Yes, it was. Today inside, they're all named after movies. VAL, our main commercial thoroughfare, named after William Pope Duval. Did not, or when he was first elected, the capital and his residents are not ready. He actually takes control of the state of Florida from a boat, very appropriate for a state surrounded by so much salt water. Back out onto Truman Avenue, named after Harry S. Truman. Did not arrive here to the 1940s. Before he got to this island, this road was called Division Street, and it runs from one side of the island all the way to the other. It divides the island in half, thus this was called Division Street. South off to your right, north off to your left. On your left, black fence. Today's Key West Cemetery behind it. What do you notice about it? We build up. We do not dig down. Again, you're on hard coral rock. High water table. Difficult to dig into, even with modern excavating equipment. If you can, you hit water real quick. Not conducive or good for burying much of anything. We build up. It is modeled after a New Orleans-style cemetery, very popular in the mid-1800s. There are boulevards and vistas that go through it, so it makes for a great little walking tour. Now past these trees, you're going to look to your left. In the middle, you'll find an American flag waving, and nearby, That's where you'll find a memorial dedicated to the sailors who lost their lives in the blast of the Maine. There's a whole lot of history inside the Key West Cemetery. On your left, we call it the heart of Old Town Key West. What you're going to find on many of our homes, beautiful and often unusual wood scrollwork. On this beige house to your right, address 623, little hearts hang down from the corners of the porch. To your left, the white two-story house. Below the roof of the porch, flowery wood scrollwork. All the railings on your right, the sidewalks, the porches, ornate wood. Back to your left, a flame tree. Yellow house, green shutters, address 606. The railing on the porch to your left, ornate. This wood scrollwork is called gingerbread. It's always been popular on the island and still is to this day. Our early gingerbread here is made by hand, the hands of the ship's carpenters. There's more than 150 different styles. Two of the most popular right across the street from each other. On your left, the yellow house, green shutters. Below the porch roof to your left is Gingerbread Man. Gingerbread. On your right, behind the palms, white house, black shutters, Victorian style. Now, as I head into a quick, quiet zone for less than half a block, keep your eyes peeled for more gingerbread along the way. I'll be back with you in a moment. Yeah, whistle tricks, Batman! Out in front of my train, the historic seaport district called Key West Bight, B-I-G-H-T. A bight is a harbor bordered by land. It has a small opening, so it makes for a safe harbor. Over 100 years ago, thousands of tons of freight flow in and out, making Key West one of the top 12 ports in the United States. With all the longshoremen and sailors working on the docks to your right, this would become the bad side of town. This is once the rough and rowdy side of Key West. What do you find on the building on the corner to your right? Wyland's mural. Everything you see on here native to the Keys. To the left of the front doors, two pink conch shells. Bull shark on the prow for prey, yellowtail, tarpon, sailfish, dolphin. This side of the building, a manta ray. In the middle, a hammerhead shark. Top far corner, a sea turtle above it. Wyland's signature in light blue. That is Wyland's only mural here in Key West. One in Marathon, one in Key Largo. I almost forgot. I got to tell you about Key West roosters and chickens. None of them are native to the Keys or Key West. They would be brought to us by the Cubans. They fled the revolution against the Spanish in the late 1800s for their own safety. They flocked to Key West in thousands of numbers. They brought with them traditions and customs like cockfighting, the fighting of the male chickens, the practice that would be outlawed by the United States in the early 1900s. We're a bird sanctuary. Cubans here could not keep them. They could not kill them. They would let them go out onto our streets, still here today. They're great for killing and eating bugs and insects. You see them digging up the ground, that's what they're doing, looking for something to eat. Bugs and insects, maybe. Across the street on your right, that beige building, the brown trim, the Bull and Whistle Bar. It opened as a fruit stand there in the early 1900s. Thus the big openings on the first floor, great for displaying fruit, passing the fruit and the money through. You'll notice a wraparound metal walkway on the second floor, French colonial style architecture. Rare down here, common up in New Orleans. The Hemingway House, the only other building or house that I know of that has that wraparound metal walkway here. On your left, the Porter House, Florida's first public health official, Dr. Joseph Yates Porter, born there in 1847, died there exactly 80 years later to the day, the Porter House. Now I'm going to finish off my tour in the middle of Mallory Square. Beyond the square is Mallory Pier. Out on that pier is where you can find the #1 rated sunset celebration in the United States. After 6:30, you'll find all kind of performing artists and vendors, people walking around with a cold mojito in their hand. Sunsets here around 8:25, right around 8:30 this evening. You'll find one of the best sunset celebrations in the United States, right out there.
At Kingdom Magic Vacations, we believe that life should be measured out in memories. For over 17 years, Kingdom Magic Vacations has specialized in making vacation dreams come true for families visiting Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Disney Cruise Line, and Adventures by Disney. Kingdom Magic Vacations has been honored as an authorized Disney vacation planner, and that means we are recognized by Disney as a leader in planning magical vacations to Disney destinations. Our knowledge and experience allows our travel professionals to custom tailor your Disney vacation and make them truly magical. We know that each moment you spend on vacation creates a memory that lasts a lifetime. You can start planning your magical Disney vacation by visiting kingdommagic.com today.